So hi everybody and welcome back to C++ tutorial series for absolute beginners. This is video 104 and in this video we want to talk about the keyword const again, but this time const in functions, and we will repeat also a little bit with variables because we need some rules to make it easy for beginners to use this const in functions. So let's get started. First of all, let's make here a repetition. The code what you see here is from my last video. I added there one more function, which is this one. Here's the forward declaration, and you see this new added function is actually just the same name like here. I just copied this one and added many const keywords in it. So you see const in front, const here, const here, const here, and const here. And we will talk this a little bit more in detail, but here a quick reminder. What you see here is on top I have my global variables. So I wrote here my global variables. Here, what you see here are my forward declarations. I said, okay, I make here also a comment so we can see it instantly. Here's our program start. And here are the definitions for all these forward declarations on the bottom. And you can see this is all collapsed. So we learned also in the last video, we have here this shortcut so that we can open it up and close it at the same time so that the code looks now packed, which is very nice. We can go jump to our main, for example, open just this one and work just here. And if we want to open up all, we can press Ctrl M, Ctrl P. Now all is up and you see this looks very, we have to scroll down and check the functions. And when we collapse all again, Ctrl M, Ctrl O. And yeah, I think I worked like this one. This is just style. Every programmer use a different style. In this video I use this style, perhaps in the next video I use another style, who knows. But this one is very, let's say, very easy to work, and let's go with this one. So that said, that was just a little bit repetition of what we have, but now we have to concentrate on the const. We already talked about const, and where we talked about const with variables. Let's check out our variables here on top. These are global variables, okay, and here I created a variable, my telephone number, which is int, and this int is a const. And we learned with variables, when we use the const keyword, we have to use at the same time initialize a value. So I have to initialize this value because const means later you can't assign a value to this variable name here. That's why you have to initialize it at the start. And then this const value, you can use it all time, but never change it. So if I try to change this because I won't violate the rules, then it will not work. So now I say, now you become just 5.3. And we see here when I hover over it, arrow type, and then it says this declaration has no storage class or type specifier. Yes, it is strange. But this one, let me see what this arrow is. We have to learn also this arrow message just a little bit. So read this one too. So it says here something like declaration is okay. This is just info, but this one is more important. Missing type specifier. Okay, that's not really true because I have it here on top. Does not support default int. Okay, my telephone number redefinition. Okay, you see this is also a little bit here chain errors. It jumps from one arrow to another arrow. So but in real it is just a redefinition and it's not working because we are trying to use const here, trying to assign a value, and the compiler says this one is anyway not possible. So are you trying to create a new variable or something like that? All right, we understand this. This is not possible. Const means don't change the variable. We learned this. But interesting is here my handy telephone number. That was my normal telephone number, for example, my house telephone number, and now I have a handy telephone number. This has another value, but this one has also a const, but this time not on front, so not at the start point, in the middle. What is the difference about this one? Actually, there is no difference here. And the reason for that is because this const refers to this int here. This const refers to this int here. Okay, so we see we have to think a little bit too much about const, and this kind will get even worse when we come to this function here, because now this const refers to what, this const refers to what, and this const refers to what, and so on. So we have to find at start a rule for beginners, or in general, not only for beginners, but we find a thumb rule, which is not all time 100% is true, but let's say most time it is true. And if you are not certain, you have to check or research, check with compiler if that the code is doing what you want. So we will learn now a rule, which is not a real rule. It is just a thumb rule, which means it can be correct in most cases, but must be not in all time correct, something like that. So, and on the web you will find some rules of this one, and there is one rule which says, I think I told you also this one, you start reading from right to left, but with const there is a special rule when you start reading from right to left. The special rule is normally when we write here this value, variable from right to left, we would start with right is my telephone number, then we read int, and then we read const, right? This is so a rule which you can read. You have to search this a little bit on the internet or on good books or anywhere, this rule right to left reading to analyzing a little bit the variable or the function. The problem with the right rule is when we have a const, we have changed it a little bit. We start not with the variable name, actually, we start with the const. The right rule, yes, start from right to left, but start with const, not with the variable name. That's interesting. So what does this mean? Let's make an example. So normally I would read here right from left, which is my telephone number is an int, and that is const. So the question is, I want to analyze const. What is now const? My telephone number is an int, and that is const. Not 100% sure what const is. Let's try this one on this one. My telephone number is const, and that is int. So anything like, let's see, my telephone number is const. Okay, the variable is const or what? And then this is int. So that we have not agreed this right to left rule. It works, but not like so. But it will work when we start with const, with the right left rule. So let's start again from right to left, but we start with const right to left, which means where is our const? Here. Here is our const, and it says here right to left. So I start with const, I go to the left, and I see nothing. There is nothing. And this is a special case. When you can't go to left, then you take the right only at the start point. This applies only at the start point, but because most time you can go to the left. So if it's on the start point, you start from right to left, you can't go left, take the right. So that means this const int, this is a const int type, which means this variable here, now we start from left to right to left. This variable, my telephone number, has a const int type, which means the type can't be changed, which is, for example, the values, I mean the values of the type can't be changed, which means I can't change these values. So one more time, we read from right to left, but when we see a const, we start from the const point to read right to left, and then we will analyze this value. So let's go and try this on the second one if this is working. Let's see. I start from right to left, right? I start here with right, my handy telephone number, and then const. When I see a const, I start from const, not from this variable. Okay, I start from const and say, now I go to left. I can go here to left. Okay, it's int, const int. This one is a constant integer, which means now I start from right to left again. My telephone number is a constant integer. So a constant integer means I can't change the value. So you see, both lines are actually the same. At least they have the same behavior. They are not absolutely the same, but the same behavior. They have a constant integer, and you can't change this value of this. All right, we learned something here, that these two things are the same. That's very important as well. This is because this is a special case, and the special case is when you start with const at start, you must go to the right and only at the start and take this first thing here. So we learned this. I hope you learned this. Let's make an example here one more time, so because we need this, we have to understand this. Let's create here some variables. Let's create a std string variable this time. And I want this, let's create first this name is my favorite colors. We had this anywhere, and I assigned this, for example, the blue, and our favorite color period 1 only. So, and now I say I want to make this const, which means your intention as a programmer, I say, wait, this variable is right now changeable, because later I can change this color in my program, and you say, I don't want to change this color. I want that this blue is all time connected to my favorite color here. I don't want that anyone should change this value here. So, and you as a programmer is then to do something for it. What you can do, remember const. Okay, const is the first step. When I use const, I can make this not changeable, but the question is now, wait a minute, where I place const? Do I place const here? Do I place const here? Or do I even place a const here? Makes this even sense? I don't know. But you see, most time the compiler will give you an error where you can't place it. And in this case, it's saying expected anything. So this place is out of the question. That's good. And here we have now to choose. And we learned just right now, we can place it in front. This will make this value not changeable. So my intention is I want that this blue is not changeable. So it's still all-time blue with my favorite color. But we learned also that's the same like const here. So we learned this one, right? The right thing. So when I read here, start with const, it is a string left rule. So this variable will be a const int. All right, I think with this variable, we have started to understand this one here. And now we go to a little bit more difficult case, which is functions. And here I have created this interesting long const functions. And now we have understand this as well. And the good thing now is if you understand this rule, what I said here on top and talked so a lot about it, you can apply this rule as well as to a function, and a function becomes easier to understand with this const. So let's get started. Let's start from top and see if we can understand this huge function with const. So first of all, you see here a const. There is normally this right left rule. Normally you start here with the function, then you read to the left, and then here and here. But I said you should start when you read from right left and see a const from the const. So here I see a const, which means const string. This const to the left has only string, and important is only to the first let's say type, so not to the second one. If there is anything else, you can ignore this. This const is just referring to the first one. Let's say to the first one. Perhaps there are some exceptions, but in our case to the first one. So this one const is referring to this string and not to this const here behind this one. just this two. And then I can say, okay, my function with strange behavior, start again from right, is a const string, which means the return type, because this one is a return type, is const a string, const string type. So we have analyzed at least what the return type is. If this return type makes here a sense or not sense, this is another question, because this is again a theoretical question, a little bit off topic now, because it's a little bit difficult for beginners, but later of course read this one as well in books and so on, but not right now. We try just to understand this function. So we have figured out we have a return type which is a const string, which means the value of this string, the return type, should not be changed. Okay, but wait a minute, we are not finished. We have here a const, which means let's continue. When we see a const again, I said start again from the const. So okay, I start here again. Const, I go to the left. Okay, this const had nothing left, and we learned the rule: if the const has nothing on the left, we go to the right. Okay, this const is referring to the string, and we can see this one is a const string again, similar like our function here. This one and this one here, we have two different names, but this one is actually doing the same thing here in one line. So it is redundant actually, which means it is not only one is necessarily usable. Not, let's say you need only one of them. To put in two makes no sense. You can delete one of them. That's it. That means redundant. So because both are trying to create the same behavior, a string which is constant, you should not change the return type of the string. So let's kick one out because this is redundant, right? We don't make something like that. And let's kick this one out. And if I kick this one out, I have to change, of course, the definition as well. My definition is here on the bottom, and I kick this one out. So I change this one so I have no problems. And of course, I have called it probably. No, there is no problem. All right. So let's continue with this one a little bit. And we are not finished. We have just finished the first part here. We have analyzed this one, and we have used the rule: start with const, go to the left, and then read from left to right, right to left, not left to right, right to left. But start all time first with const and analyze this one, right? So here we have parameters, and let's see what happens here. This looks also crazy. We have already talked about this references here, and this const, we have also talked about this const reference actually. And now let's try to analyze this one with our thumb rule, right? I said if you see a const, you are going to the left. But here, careful, here is a closing bracket, parenthesis, which means here's a round brackets. This one means you have solved this one here. In this case, you can go here to left. It means that you should go to left. It's here like a scope, right? You can think about this one as separate scope here, and that means this is the starting point, and there is no left actually. That's a little bit tricky here, but think about this. We can't go left here, which means I start here const. I can't go left because this round brackets here, which indicates this is the starting point. And then you have to go again with the rule to the right. And when we do this, we see this is a const string. We learned this already in any video before, which means don't change the value of this variable. But here we have something interesting. Here is also, let's try to read this one from from right to left again, because I said we read first, we see this const and then analyze this one, and then we read the whole thing from right to left. Let's do this. I start from right. It says my name para, which is a variable, is, we have a reference. So this variable is a reference, okay, this one. And this reference is a const string, which means we have a reference which is a string type, which should be not change the value of this one. So this one means this. Alrighty, so we have understood this, I hope, a little bit. It's a little bit complicated, but this explanation is complicated, but when you understand this rule and use it, it's very fast. So let's do this one here one more time. And here you can see here again, this const is a little bit changed. I wrote first int and then const and then this reference. Oops, not so. And let's do this and check what happens here. So again, the rule, we start from right to left, right? But when we see a const, we start from the const. I see here already a const. So I start from here. So here const, then I go to the left. So I start reading from here const and I go to the left. So I found this const is a constant integer this time. Okay, we have a type integer when this variable as an integer type should be not changed, because this const integer says should be not changed. But now we read also this reference. Let's read this one as well. So we start from right. Variable is a reference to a const integer. All right, this reference is read separately. So that's a thumb rule. It's not this. We will talk about this reference a little bit more in detail later. Not in future videos, because this reference will behind the scene, it's similar to a pointer, and we have not talked about pointer. Pointers is a very big topic, but when we talk about pointer, we will talk again about this reference a little bit more in detail. So in here we just remember, like I said, we tried just to make a thumb rule, just start from the right. Okay, my variable here, my edge param, is a reference to a const int. So all time when we see a const, start from the const and go to the left is a const int, and then read from left to right, right to left. So my param is a reference to a constant integer. So, and now the last one. This is a little bit more tricky, and not tricky, actually. The const rules applies to this one as well. But we have not talked about this reference in detail. That's why it's perhaps a little bit difficult. No, it's not difficult. That's why we should not talk about it. But let's talk about this one as well, because you can see this one in code and then you can get perhaps confused. That's why we talk here about this one as well. So what is this last one? So same rule like all time. You start from right to left. And if you see a const, then you start from the const point. Then you stop reading it, you start first const. So this const says, I start from const, I go to the left, and I find this time a reference, right? The first thing what you find. And this one is finding a reference. This says the const is connected now to this reference, but not to this int. That's interesting. So that means this is a const reference. And when we read this now from start again, from right to left, so I start from right, test, the variable test is a const reference with the type int, which means the int is changeable, but this reference is not changeable, right? This const says don't change this reference here, but we can change our value of type. And that's careful about this one. When you see something like this one, that you not get confused with this one. You see here we can't change the value of my param, because let's repeat this one. We start with const. The const means for int I start from const and then I go to left. It says this const is connected to this int, and means don't change the value of int, which is your value of param. So I can't change this one, and it is then a reference. This reference means just is a backwards setting. I can't set this backwards. We have talked about this, but this one here I can set backwards. What I mean backwards, we have talked about this, because this const says only the reference is const, which means we have not talked about references anyway, but we have talked about this int, and this is not a const, which means I can change this test here, and this reference will change it backwards. And this is the last thing what I want to show you in code. What does this mean? Because this one is probably this place where you should be careful. And one more thing, later there are more const places, at least one more when we learn classes, and so then a const can even stand behind this one here. But here it's not possible because this one needs to be in a class or in a struct. So we get here a error message which says it's not a member function, but we will talk about this const when we talk about classes and structs, but this later. So just a reminder, there are more const which can be irritating, but just in general, make the thumb rule at a beginner. When you see const, start from const, go to left, and then read the whole thing from right to left, right? And we'll go now to our main, because I want to demonstrate this special case here, which can, start point is here, and here is my start point. And here I have called this function here, this one here, I have called here, and I have called it with, I want print this function out. So here's my function with strange behavior. And here are repetition of function overloading. Here we have this one here and this one here. And the compiler can distinguish this by the parameters. Even we have the same name, the compiler knows exactly that I'm calling this one because the compiler is checking parameters. So just a repetition of function overloading, because this was again a function overloading. But in general, don't do at the beginning function overloadings because unique names are better at start. Then we know exactly what this function is doing on its own. So let's continue. So, and then I created here local variables here in my function main. Let's call this local variables here, just so local. All right, so my local variables, and here I created a string, and I called this set my name here from function reference. It was created in the video before, I think. And then I created here int my edge, and then also anything in. And here I created a test this value. This is another variable. We have to test this value, and this kind of stuff I put it in our function here. So I use this function and I called it here. You can see it, and it goes here. Careful about this one. When you see something like this, here is a comma. It's not a semicolon, which means this ends not here. It continues. You have to go on, because the compiler will read till it finds the semicolon. That was a little bit styled. Careful. You can see something strange like this too. And this one is not really readable, but something like that. But if you see something, so it is just style, bad style, or something like that. And something there is, sometimes there are very good styles even so. But now I made a very bad style, because now we can't read it. And yeah, let's continue. That was again a little bit repetition of style, that you not get irritated by this comma here. It is not ending here. It is just, this is my first value, this is my second value, and this is my third value. And we concentrate here on the last value, right? This one we know already. That's why I skipped this. The first one we know, this is a const reference. This is a const reference, which means I can't change. And irritating is this one. It says const, but I can still change this one. And this one we test this here. So, and how we test this is I already use these values. And here I call this and I print this out, right? This is all that this thing is doing. And we expect that I can't change this one because I'm using it here at the first. We expect that I can't change this one because I'm using that here. But we expect that this one is changeable, even so it says here const. And that is the irritating thing, because this is just a const reference, has nothing to do with this type, which means I still can change it. And when I run this, let's see what happens. And we see here, let's check this. Let's see what I did here. Okay, it's of course it's printing also a return value because this one has a return value. Let me a second, let's start this again and let's uncomment this one so that we get not irritated with other codes. Oops, let's uncomment the whole thing here, because I want not get irritated by the other codes here. Control comment. All right. So this one, I want just start now this one function here. I want just call this one function. Let's ignore the other ones. So, and now I start this one. And you can see what this is doing. It is just saying this is the return value. I changed the name and edge by reference. And here it says 100. And the 100 is this test value, which it should not change. And this name is, of course, this output is, of course, also wrong. Let's make go here and I changed nothing. I changed only test. Even it got a const in it, because const is just connected to reference, which is this one and this one, something like that. So let's start this one again. It makes a little bit more sense. So this is the return value. So we call this one here the function return value. This is this text here, which I have. And this text is, we can see, a const string, but actually we are doing nothing with it right now, right? This is just a return value. So this one is returning a string, and this is not really working. We have to talk about this const string later a little bit more in detail, why, if it makes sense to have here const as a return value, because this is again a theoretical part, but important is this part here in the parameters. We changed something which we can't change, because this one int test has a const and we changed it backwards, right? I changed this value here, test this value to 100, and this is actually the most important thing here. And even more important is that you know this rule, the thumb rule. And let's go fast about this rule again, because that's so important. You have to try to understand it. The rule is, so normally you would read right to left, but if you see a const, stop at this point and read from right to left from the const. So you start with const, then you read to the left at start point. It's a special case. You're doing then here jumping to the right. You have this one, and then you read this one again from right to left, but you keep this in mind. So my telephone number is a const int, and so forth. I'm not repeating this again. You can click on the video at the start point where I try to explain this, but this rule here is very important for beginners, because it is, like I said, this is a thumb rule which can help you try to analyze this strange things here, strange function with const. And if you are uncertain, just Google it, or just let's say debug it, so that you can see what happens here step by step, if they are really changing something, or if this is allowed. All time when you are not certain, debug it, check off if the values comes as expected, and read of course on the web what the other says, or where to put the cons and what is the result of that, and so on. So I hope this one helps, because const will be confusing. It's confusing for many programmers, so not only for beginners. Depends on the program, can become even more complicated, and that's why we need very good names, because yeah. And I think the most important part is this one, that you not get irritated with this const as a beginner, because this one says not change value. This one says you still can change value even you read a const, and that can confuse a beginners a little bit much. All right, because one more thing, because when you read const, it means all time, don't change it. Right, const means please don't change it. Please don't change this variable. Don't change variable. Don't change variable. And this case is really special. This means you still can change the variable, but please don't change the reference. So anyway, with that said, I stop here. I talked much, and if you have any questions or complaints, ask in the comments. And I wish you a good luck, and train this a little bit, because and read this on the web. For example, ask in Stack Overflow with const, or read other sources, a good C++ book where it's explained why const is there, and so on. All right, I stop here. Good luck and bye.